Hi everybody, it's me, Miss Lisa, and welcome to Stitch Kids. Today we are going to begin making a rainbow cross-stitch bookmark. To complete this project, you will need a craft kit from the South Huntington Public Library. Your craft kit will include 2 pieces of plastic canvas, a bundle of rainbow-colored yarn, and a yarn needle. Today you will not need your pin pal. We won't be using any pins or needles, but you will need a pair of scissors. All right, let's get started. These bookmarks are created using a cross-stitch technique on a piece of plastic canvas, which is basically just a plastic grid. I decided to make a rainbow pattern using my yarn, but you can choose to make yours any way you would like. So go ahead and select a color of yarn from your bundle and separate it from the others. I think I'll make another rainbow, so I'll start with red. You have a really long piece of yarn here. It doesn't need to be this long, so let's cut it in half. And we'll set the other half aside. For this project, you're going to use a yarn needle, and your yarn should thread easily in the very large eye of the yarn needle. Come up through the back in the top square, the top left corner. Pull, leaving about an inch or so of yarn behind the grid. Now you're going to make a diagonal pattern, which means you're going to count 1, 2 squares diagonally from where you started and put the needle in and pull. You don't need to pull too tight, just tight enough to keep it secure. Now you'll start right next to where you started, coming up through the back, and hopefully what we're doing now is catching that little tail on the back to secure the other end of the thread so it doesn't pull out of the grid as we are sewing. Count 1, 2, push the needle in and pull. Oops. And hold on tight with your other hand, that's for sure. Okay, and we'll start again here next to where our other stitch began. Pull up, and then you can count 1, 2, but you'll see that your stitches are lying right next to each other. As you start stitching, you won't need to do as much counting. You can just follow with your eyes until you get all the way to the other end. Okay, now stop when you have 1, 2, 3 squares at the top left. And now we are going to go down to the next row and go the other way to make 2 rows of the same color. Okay, so see where we are now? You're going to go next to where this last stitch ended. You're going to come up from the back, pull, and go down just 1. We are trying to leave the outside empty because we're going to bind off the bookmark with another piece of yarn. In this case, I used the white going around the outside. So I want to leave empty squares all along the sides and the bottom and the top. Okay, now there's my last stitches here. I'm going to come up where I've already sewn. That's okay. And I'm going to count 1, 2, just like I did on the top row, and push the needle back through. Start next to your last stitch and count 1, 2, and you'll see that the stitches are ending up next to each other, and you're filling in the plastic grid. 1, 2, and so forth. Okay, now continue in that way all the way to the end, and then we'll tie off. When you've reached the end, it is time to tie off your thread. So turn your project over, slide the needle under a few stitches on the back, and pull. Then trim your thread as close to your project as you can. And now that loose thread is hidden inside your stitches. And you're ready to start another color. When you've switched colors, you will start another row and work in much the same way that you were working before. We are going to start here where these stitches ended, and we're leaving one square along the side, but we are in the same row where the red stitches ended. So push the needle through, and again leave maybe an inch or so of yarn on the back, and hold that in place with your fingers. While you count 1, 2, push the needle back in, pull gently, bring the needle up through the back and try to catch that, make sure that this lays flat against the grid on the back. Oops, I just caught my scissors. There we go. Pull, and then count 1, 2, and it goes back down again. Now you'll notice that your needle is going to be coming up where you already have some yarn. That's okay. That's what you want to have happen, because you're making, it's like you're coloring on a plastic grid using yarn, and you don't want any of the paper or something, or the plastic, to show through your coloring in this case. And once you get the hang of it, you'll see how to go in a natural diagonal direction. And on the back, we are stitching down that loose little tail of thread, so you won't be able to see it. All right, now just continue until you get to the end. Make your turn if you would like, and make a second row of the same color. However, if you don't want to do that, all you need to do is tie it off when you reach the end of the row. And I'll just give you an example of that. I'm not going to go all the way to the end of the row, but you would tie off by putting your needle underneath a few of the stitches in the back, pull, and then trim as close to your stitches as possible. All right, when you've filled up the whole grid with stripes, we will get back together and add the border and some fringe. Take your time, relax, and have fun. When you've finished with your design down the middle of the bookmark, it's time to add a border, like this one, that will make the plastic canvas look finished and cover up all of those empty holes. I'm going to use white yarn, but you may use whichever color you choose. Take that piece of yarn, which is probably really long, and cut it into 2 pieces. Set one piece aside. Put the other through the yarn needle, leaving a small tail, And remember, when you are stitching on plastic canvas, you do not need to add a knot at the other end of the yarn. So we're going to start at one corner on the bottom, bring the yarn needle up through the first empty square you find, and pull, leaving a little tail sticking out at the back, maybe an inch or an inch and a half or so, and hold that tail down with your finger. Working diagonally, find the next empty square and push your yarn needle through and gently pull, making a stitch. Now, instead of coming up through a square, you're going to bring the yarn around the canvas. This can be a little tricky because you need to hold this tail down while you're bringing the yarn over the canvas like this. This is how you're going to hide that thread on the back and also hide the edge of the plastic canvas. So you'll work diagonally, going into the next open square, and even if there's already thread in that square, let me show you what I mean. There's yarn already in the square. I'm still going to put the yarn in it to fill in as much of this empty space as I can. Working around again, wrap the yarn around the outside of the canvas and pull. And here we go again. Like so. So this is kind of like doing a whip stitch, but you're not working with fabric, you're working with the plastic canvas. And we're also hiding that little tail back there behind. Okay, so now that you've got the hang of it, go all the way around the bookmark with your outline yarn and tie off. And then we'll add some fringe. Okay, relax, take your time, and have fun.
Please hang up and try again.
Okay, I just wanted to let you know that when you make a mistake in cross stitch, it's very easy to fix that mistake. As I was sewing along, I noticed I had left some holes open here in my design. I think I'd rather have my yarn fill those holes. So I've removed the yarn from my yarn needle and I'm using the sharp end to pull the yarn out of the canvas. I'm going to start over. After your bookmark is finished and you've completed the border and trimmed any extra yarn off the back, you can add some decorative fringe. The fringe is made from the scraps of yarn you had left over from the design. Take those long pieces and cut them into shorter pieces that are maybe about the length of your bookmark. Decide which color you'd like to put in first, and you can make as many as you would like. I just made one of each color, but if you'd like, you could go all the way across the top of your bookmark. But I'm going to put my fringe sort of in the middle. So I've threaded my yarn needle, and I'm going to decide where I'd like that fringe to go. Push the yarn needle through so the thread is kind of hanging on both sides of the plastic canvas. Remove the needle and choose another color. I'm going to stick with my rainbow theme, so I'm going to use a piece of orange, but you can use whatever color you would like. Find the square that's next to the one you put in before. Push the yarn needle through. Pull the needle off of the thread, and now you have two colors hanging on two sides. Continue in this way until you have as much fringe as you would like to see at the top of your bookmark. And you know, sometimes it can be kind of tricky to find those little squares, but you can use your needle to pull your stitches away. If they're not exactly even, that's okay. Remember, this is a handmade object, so it's okay for it to be a little funky. Funky is good. Okay. Now I have green. Doesn't want to go in. There we go. Okay. And green is next. Remember, if you accidentally pull the yarn all the way through, just start again. And blue. I'm going to set the purple one aside for now, and I'll show you why. And blue goes next to the green, like that. There we go. Okay, so now I set the purple one aside so that I could tie all of these together so they stay together in a nice decorative bunch. That's up to you. You can tie them all together, or if you would like, you can just tie a knot like this, each color. A double knot, I would suggest, so they don't fall out, because I'm sure you're going to get a lot of use out of this bookmark, because you're going to read a lot of books. So you can go across like that and make a double knot with each color, and that makes it really fringy. But if you want all of your fringe to kind of be in one place, you can take that extra piece of yarn you set aside and tie it around the bottom. It's up to you. You can decide which way it looks the best or is the most fun. You could do it that way too. So I'm going to tie a double knot and then push the long threads up to be part of the fringe. And if you would like to leave the fringe shaggy, you can. Or you can use your scissors and give your bookmark a little haircut to make all of the pieces even. That's up to you. And now your bookmark is ready to mark your place in your favorite book. Stitch Kids, thank you so much for stitching with me today. I hope I'll see you again soon. Take care.